I paid off my parents' debt and gave them monthly upkeep for the past 8 years. But at their anniversary party, my dad gave all the inheritance to my elder brother, he announced. We raised a fool who only thinks he is the best son because he takes care of our bills. He does not deserve anything from us. So I dropped the bomb immediately and everyone was surprised. Hello. Thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Carolyn from Illinois, USA. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's dive into the details of today's story. The burden of the checkbook in my back pocket felt heavier than usual as I parked my car in front of my parents' house. 8 years. 8 years of writing those checks, signing my name on the dotted line, watching my bank account shrink like a deflating balloon. I'd paid off their house debt, every penny of it, down to the last cent, and sent them monthly upkeep like clockwork. It wasn't just money. It was my time, my dreams, my sweat. But standing there, staring at the cracked driveway and the faded blue shutters, I felt a flicker of pride. Tonight, they'd see it. They had to. It was their 40th anniversary, and the house buzzed with life. Laughter spilled out the open windows, mingling with the smell of grilled burgers and Mom's famous potato salad. I adjusted my tie, smoothing it down like it could iron out the wrinkles in my nerves. The air was warm, thick with summer, and I felt the sweat beading on my forehead. I told myself it was the heat, not the anxiety clawing at my chest. Edward, you made it. Sarah's voice cut through the noise as I stepped onto the porch. She was leaning against the railing, her red dress bright against the peeling paint. My best friend since high school, Sarah had a way of seeing through me, like I was made of glass. Barely, I said, forcing a smile. Traffic was a nightmare. She raised an eyebrow, her hazel eyes narrowing. Traffic? Huh? Or were you sitting in your car for 10 minutes, debating whether to turn around? I laughed, but it came out hollow. She wasn't wrong. I'd circled the block twice, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. You know me too well, I admitted. Someone has to, she said, nudging me with her elbow. Come on, let's get you a drink before you overthink this into oblivion. Inside, the living room was a kaleidoscope of chaos. Aunt Carol was arguing with Uncle Joe about politics, their voices rising over the clinking of glasses. Cousins chased each other around the coffee table, their sneakers squeaking on the hardwood. Mom was in the kitchen, her apron dusted with flour, barking orders at my sister-in-law, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. And there, by the fireplace, stood Michael, my elder brother. He was holding court, as usual, his laugh loud and booming, his hands gesturing like he was conducting an orchestra. Everyone leaned in, hanging on his every word. He hadn't changed, same crooked smile, same effortless charm. But his eyes flicked to me for a split second, and I saw it, the flicker of amusement, like I was a punchline he hadn't delivered yet. Edward, Mom called, waving me over. You're late. Help me with these trays. I nodded, crossing the room, but her words stung. Late. Always the afterthought. I remembered being 10 years old, standing in their kitchen, watching her fuss over Michael's report card. Look at these grades, Edward, she'd said, holding up his B's like they were gold medals. My straight A's sat on the counter, untouched. I carried the trays to the dining room, their heft grounding me. I told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't here for Michael. I was here for them. For Mom and Dad. For the family. I'd done everything right. Paid their bills, kept the lights on, made sure they didn't lose this house. They had to see that. Edward, you look tired, Mom said, as I set the trays down. Her voice was soft, but there was an edge to it, like she was diagnosing me. I'm fine, I said, forcing another smile. Just work. Work, 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 she sighed, wiping her hands on her apron. You're always so serious. Michael, now he knows how to live. Did you hear he's starting that new business? Such potential. Potential. The word landed like a punch. Michael's potential had been the soundtrack of my childhood. Potential to be a lawyer, a musician, a CEO. Never mind that he'd dropped out of college, blown through 3 jobs in 5 years, and left me to clean up the mess. I wanted to tell her, wanted to say, potential doesn't pay the mortgage, Mom. I do. But I swallowed it, like I always did. Sounds great, I said, my voice tight. She didn't notice. She never did. The party stretched on, the noise swelling like a tide. I found Sarah by the punch bowl, her eyes scanning the room. "You okay?" she asked, handing me a cup. "Yeah," I lied. "Just Michael." She nodded, her lips pressing into a thin line. "He's insufferable. But you're not here for him. You're here for them." "I know," I said, but the words felt hollow. Was I here for them? Or was I here to prove something to myself, to them, to Michael? I remember the day I paid off the house. Sitting in the bank, signing the papers, my fingers trembling. I put it in my name, just in case. A precaution, I told myself. But deep down, I think I knew. I knew they'd never see me the way I wanted them to. "Edward," Dad's voice boomed from the living room, pulling me back. He was standing by the fireplace, a glass of whiskey in his hand, his face flushed. "Get over here. We're toasting." I crossed the room, my heart pounding. This was it. The moment. He'd raise his glass, thank me for everything, tell everyone how I'd kept the family afloat. I felt it, the warmth, the validation, the pressure lifting. But as I reached him, his eyes slid past me, landing on Michael. "To my eldest," he said, his voice thick with pride. "To Michael, the son who makes us proud." The room cheered, glasses clinking, but I stood frozen. Michael grinned, clapping Dad on the back, and I felt it. The crack, the fracture, the moment everything shifted. Sarah's hand brushed my arm, her voice low. "Edward, breathe." But I couldn't. Not yet. Because I knew, deep down, that this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The room spun, a blur of faces and clinking glasses, but all I could hear was Dad's voice, echoing like a gunshot. "To Michael, the son who makes us proud." The words sliced through me, sharp and clean, leaving a raw, bleeding edge. I stood there, frozen, my cup of punch trembling in my hand. The liquid sloshed, red and sticky, and for a moment, I thought I might drop it, watch it shatter on the hardwood like everything else in my life. The cheers erupted, loud and jarring, like a flock of crows taking flight. Aunt Carol clapped, her bracelets jangling. Uncle Joe raised his glass, his laugh booming. Michael stood beside Dad, his crooked smile wider than ever, his eyes glinting with something I couldn't name, triumph, maybe, or amusement. He clapped Dad on the back, and the sound was like a slap, sharp and personal. I wanted to move, to say something, to do anything, but my feet felt glued to the floor. Sarah's hand was still on my arm, her grip tightening, but her voice sounded far away, like she was shouting through water. "Edward, breathe," she said, but I couldn't. Not yet. Because the weight of it, the weight of 8 years, of every check, every late night, every dream I'd buried, was crashing down, and I didn't know if I could carry it anymore. Then Dad spoke again, and the room tilted. "We've got an announcement," he said, his voice thick with whiskey and pride. He raised his glass higher, his eyes sweeping the room, but they didn't land on me. They never did. "After all these years, Linda and I have decided it's time to settle the inheritance. The house, the savings, everything, it's going to Michael." The silence that followed was deafening, a vacuum sucking the air out of the room. I felt it, the shift, the way everyone's eyes darted to me, then away, like I was a car wreck they didn't want to stare at. Aunt Carol's mouth opened, then closed. Uncle Joe coughed, his glass halfway to his lips. Mom stood by the kitchen door, her apron still dusted with flour, her hands twisting the fabric like she was wringing out her guilt. And Michael just stood there, his smirk growing, his eyes flicking to me for a split second. That look, it wasn't surprise. It wasn't gratitude. It was victory. Like he'd won a game I didn't even know we were playing. "Edward," Sarah whispered, her voice urgent now, but I couldn't hear her. Not over the noise in my head, the roar of blood in my ears, the memory of every moment I'd sacrificed for them. I remembered the day I paid off the house, sitting in the bank, my fingers trembling as I signed the papers. I remembered the nights I'd stayed late at work, the weekends I'd skipped, the vacations I'd never taken. I remembered the way Mom's voice softened when she talked about Michael's potential, the way Dad's eyes lit up when Michael walked into a room. And I remembered the checkbook in my back pocket, the burden of it, the way it had become a part of me, like an extra limb I couldn't amputate. Then Dad spoke again, and it was like he'd lit a match and tossed it into the gasoline-soaked wreckage of my life. "We raised a fool," he said, his voice dripping with disdain, "who only thinks he's the best son because he takes care of our bills. He doesn't deserve anything from us." The room gasped, a collective intake of breath, but I didn't hear it. I didn't hear anything except those words, looping in my head, over and over, like a broken record. A fool doesn't deserve anything. I felt it. The crack, the fracture, the moment everything snapped. I didn't remember deciding to stand. Before I knew it, I pushed Sarah's hand away, set my cup down, and stepped forward. Suddenly, I was there, in the center of the room, my voice loud and steady, like it belonged to someone else. Enough, I said, and the word cut through the noise, sharp and final. Everyone turned, their eyes wide, their mouths open. Michael's smirk faltered, just for a second, and I felt a surge of something anger, yes, but also clarity, like the fog had lifted and I could finally see. 8 years, I said, my voice rising, my fingers trembling. 8 years of paying your bills, keeping the lights on, making sure you didn't lose this house. I paid off the debt, every cent, and you know what? I put it in my name. Because deep down, I think I knew. I knew you'd never see me. Not really. Dad's face darkened, his mouth opening to interrupt, but I didn't let him. No, I said, stepping closer, my voice faltering now, but not with fear, with rage. You don't get to talk. Not anymore. You think I'm a fool? Fine. But this fool is done. I'm cutting you off. No more checks, no more upkeep, nothing. And the house? It's going up for sale. Tomorrow. The room erupted, gasps and murmurs, but I wasn't finished. I turned to Mom, her face pale, her hands still twisting her apron. You took me for granted, I said, my voice cracking. Both of you. And I let you. But not anymore. I turned to Michael, his smirk gone now, his eyes wide. And you, I said, pointing, you can have their precious inheritance. Enjoy it. Because I'm done carrying this family. I turned and walked out, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood, the noise of the party fading behind me. Sarah called my name, her voice desperate, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Not until I was outside, the night air cool against my skin, the stars sharp and bright above me. I stood there, my chest heaving, my fist clenched. The burden of the checkbook was still in my pocket, but for the first time in 8 years, it felt lighter. Not gone, not yet, but lighter. And I knew, as I got into my car and drove away, that this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The morning sun sliced through my blinds like a knife, sharp and unrelenting, and I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating on the nightstand. It wasn't just buzzing, it was rattling, like it was trying to claw its way off the edge. I rolled over, my head pounding, and squinted at the screen. 245 missed calls. The number stared back at me, cold and accusing, like a jury delivering a verdict. I sat up, the sheets tangling around my legs, and scrolled through the list. Mom, Dad, Michael, Aunt Carol, Uncle Joe, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Even Mrs. Jenkins, the neighbor who used to babysit me, had called twice. The notifications kept coming, piling up like debris after a storm, voicemails, texts, emails, all clamoring for my attention. I didn't open them. I couldn't. Not yet. I stumbled to the kitchen, my bare feet cold against the tile, and poured myself a cup of coffee. The mug was warm in my hands, but it didn't stop the trembling. I kept seeing Dad's face, the way his eyes had narrowed when I'd said it, the house, the sale, the end of it all. I kept hearing Mom's silence, the way she'd stood there, twisting her apron, like she could wring out her guilt. And Michael's smirk, fading into something else, something I couldn't name. Fear, maybe, or panic. I took a sip of coffee, but it tasted bitter, like ash. My phone buzzed again, and I flinched, nearly dropping the mug. It was Mom. Her name flashed on the screen, bright and insistent, and for a moment, I almost answered. I wanted to hear her voice, to hear her say it was a mistake, that they were sorry that they saw me. But then I remembered Dad's words, a fool doesn't deserve anything, and I let it ring, the sound echoing in the empty kitchen. By noon, the calls hadn't stopped. I turned the phone off, but the silence was worse. It pressed against me, heavy and suffocating, like a weight on my chest. I paced the apartment, my footsteps loud against the hardwood, and tried to focus. I'd done the right thing. I knew I had. They'd taken me for granted, mocked me, humiliated me. I'd given them everything. 8 years of my life, my savings, my dreams, and they'd thrown it back in my face. So why did I feel like I was the one who'd done something wrong? I remembered the day I started paying their bills. I was 25, fresh out of grad school, my first paycheck itching to be spent. Mom had called, her voice trembling, saying the bank was threatening to foreclose. "We're going to lose the house, Edward," she'd said, and I'd heard the fear, the desperation. I'd written the check that night, my fingers steady, my heart racing. It was just one payment, I told myself. Just one. But one turned into 2, then 10, then years. I remembered the nights I'd stayed late at work, the weekends I'd skipped, the vacations I'd never taken. I remembered the way my savings account dwindled, like water draining from a cracked bucket. And I remembered the checkbook in my back pocket, the burden of it, the way it had become a part of me. The doorbell rang, sharp and jarring, and I froze. I peered through the peephole, my heart pounding, and saw Mom standing there, her face pale, her eyes red. She was holding a casserole dish, her fingers trembling, and for a moment, I almost opened the door. But then I remembered Dad's voice, Michael's smirk, and I stepped back, my breath hitching. She rang again, then knocked, her voice muffled through the wood. "Edward, please," she said. "We need to talk." "You owe us that much." "I owed you?" The words hit me like a slap, and I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. I owed them nothing. Not after last night. Not after everything. I waited, silent, until her footsteps faded, the casserole dish left on the porch like an offering. I called Sarah, my fingers still trembling, and she answered on the first ring. "Edward," she said, her voice steady, grounding. "I was hoping you'd call." "I don't know what to do," I said, my voice cracking. "They won't stop calling. Mom showed up with a casserole, like that's going to fix it. And I keep thinking, maybe I went too far. Maybe selling the house is too much." "Edward," she said, her tone firm, "you didn't go too far." "They did. They humiliated you, mocked you, after everything you've done. You have every right to set boundaries." "But they're my parents," I said, my voice breaking. "What if I'm punishing them too harshly? What if I'm the one who's wrong?" "You're not," she said, and I could hear the anger in her voice, sharp and protective. "They took you for granted. They let Michael walk all over them, and they let him walk all over you. You're not punishing them. You're protecting yourself." I wanted to believe her. I did. But the remorse was there, gnawing at me like a rat chewing through wires. I remembered Mom's face last night, the way she looked at me like I'd betrayed her. I remembered Dad's silence, the way he'd refused to meet my eyes. And Michael, who'd called 3 times, leaving voicemails I hadn't listened to. I could guess what they said. Fake apologies, promises to share the inheritance, anything to get me back in line. I turned my phone back on, and the notifications flooded in. Michael's voicemails were the worst. "Edward, come on," he said, his voice smooth, like honey laced with poison. "You're overreacting. Let's talk this out. I'll split the inheritance with you 50-50. You know I'm good for it." I deleted it, my fingers trembling, but the next one was worse. "You thought you were some martyr, but you were just greedy," he said, his tone shifting, sharp and venomous. "Everyone's saying it. You're tearing this family apart." I threw the phone across the room, and it hit the wall, the screen cracking. The silence that followed was deafening, but it didn't last. The shame was still there, louder now, and I knew I couldn't escape it. Not yet. I called the real estate agent, my voice steady, and told her to list the house. It was done. Final. But as I hung up, I felt it. The crack, the fracture, the moment everything shifted again. And I knew, as I sat there, staring at the cracked screen of my phone, that this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The days blurred together, a haze of phone calls and silence, but the house sale moved forward like a freight train, unstoppable and loud. I stood in my apartment, staring at the real estate agent's email on my cracked phone screen. Listed, it said, the word cold and final, like a gavel slamming down. I should have felt relief, but instead, I felt hollow, like I'd carved out a piece of myself and left it on the market, up for grabs. I remembered the first time I saw that house, 6 years old, clinging to Mom's hand as we walked up the driveway. The blue shutters were bright then, the grass green, the air thick with possibility. I remembered running through the living room, my sneakers squeaking on the hardwood, laughing as Dad chased me. It wasn't just a house, it was home, or at least, it used to be. Now, it was just a number on a listing, A price tag on a memory. The phone buzzed again, and I flinched, my heart racing. It was Mom, her name flashing like a warning light. I let it ring, the sound echoing in the empty apartment, but the voicemail came through, her voice trembling, raw. "Edward, please," she said, and I could hear the tears, the desperation. "We're losing everything. The house, our savings, it's all gone. You can't do this. We're your parents. We need you." I deleted it, my fingers trembling, but the words lingered, sharp and accusing. I wanted to scream, to tell her they'd lost me long before they lost the house. But the remorse was there, gnawing at me like a splinter under my skin. I remembered the casserole dish she'd left on my porch, the way it had sat there, cold and untouched, until I threw it out. I remembered her face at the party, pale and silent, twisting her apron like she could wring out her guilt. And I remembered Dad's voice, mocking me, calling me a fool. I called Sarah, my voice tight, and she answered on the first ring. "Edward," she said, her tone steady, grounding. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know," I said, pacing the apartment, my footsteps loud against the hardwood. "Mom's calling, begging, but Dad, he hasn't said a word. And Michael, he's spreading rumors, saying I'm tearing the family apart. I keep thinking, maybe I am. Maybe I'm the one who's wrong." "Edward," she said, her voice sharp, protective. "You're not wrong. They did this. They took you for granted, mocked you, after everything you've done. You're not tearing the family apart. They did that when they chose Michael over you." "I know," I said, but the words felt hollow. I wanted to believe her, but the shame was louder, and I couldn't shake it. I remembered the day I paid off the house, sitting in the bank, my fingers trembling as I signed the papers. I put it in my name, just in case. A precaution, I told myself. But deep down, I think I knew. I knew they'd never see me the way I wanted them to. The doorbell rang, sharp and jarring, and I froze. I peered through the peephole, my heart pounding, and saw Mom again, her face pale, her eyes red. She was alone this time. No casserole, just her, standing there, her hands clasped like she was praying. I opened the door, my breath hitching, and she looked up, her eyes meeting mine. "Edward," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I know we hurt you. I know we took you for granted. I let Richard, your father, I let him influence me. I let Michael's flattery blind me. But I see it now. I see you. Please, don't sell the house. It's all we have left." I stood there, silent, my chest constricting. I wanted to believe her, wanted to see the mom I remembered, the one who'd kissed my scraped knees and read me bedtime stories. But then I remembered the party, the way she'd stood there, silent, while Dad mocked me. I remembered the years of silence, the way she'd dismissed my sacrifices, the way she'd praised Michael's potential like it was gold. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice steady, but my fingers were trembling. "But it's done. The house is listed. And I'm done, too. I can't keep carrying this family." She started to cry, her shoulders trembling, but I closed the door, my heart pounding. I leaned against it, my breath ragged, and listened to her footsteps fade, the sound echoing in the silence. The next day, I got a call from Aunt Carol, her voice sharp, accusing. "Edward," she said, "you're breaking your mother's heart. Your father, he's furious. He's saying you're vindictive, heartless. Everyone's talking about it. The neighbors, the cousins, they're all saying you've gone too far." I hung up, my fingers trembling, but the words lingered, sharp and venomous. I wanted to scream, to tell them they didn't know, they didn't see. But the remorse was there, louder now, and I couldn't escape it. Then came the twist, the moment everything shifted. I was sorting through my emails, my eyes burning, when I saw it, a message from the bank, flagged as urgent. I opened it, my heart racing, and read the words, cold and clinical. "Account activity alert. Unauthorized withdrawals detected. Please review." I logged in, my fingers trembling, and saw it. The savings account, the one I'd used to pay their bills, drained. Thousands of dollars, gone. I scrolled through the transactions, my breath hitching, and saw the name, Michael. He'd been taking money, month after month, year after year, while I'd been paying their bills. He'd been draining them, draining me, and they'd let him. I sat there, staring at the screen, my chest constricting. I remembered the party, the way he'd smirked, the way he'd stood there, smug and victorious. I remembered the years of excuses, the way Mom had praised his potential, the way Dad had favored him. And I realized they'd known. Maybe not the details, but they'd known he was unreliable, selfish, and they'd chosen him anyway. I called Sarah, my voice faltering, and told her everything. He stole from them, I said, my voice breaking. And they let him. They let him take everything, and they still chose him over me. Edward, she said, her voice steady, grounding. You're not wrong. You're not tearing the family apart. They did that. And now, they're paying the price. I hung up, my fingers still trembling, and looked out the window, the city stretching out below me. The remorse was still there, but it was quieter now, overshadowed by something else. Clarity, maybe, or resolve. I knew, as I sat there, gazing at the skyline, that this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The email came through at 6:47 a.m., the subject line cold and clinical. Sale finalized. I sat there, staring at the screen, my coffee cooling in my hands. The words blurred, not because my eyes were tired, but because I couldn't focus, couldn't wrap my head around it. The house was gone. Sold. A number on a bank statement, a signature on a dotted line. I'd done it. I'd cut the cord, severed the tie, and now, there was no going back. I remembered the day we moved in, 6 years old, my backpack slung over one shoulder, my laces trailing behind me. Mom had laughed as I tripped on the porch steps, Dad catching me just in time. The blue shutters were bright then, the paint fresh, the air thick with promise. I remembered the smell of Mom's cookies baking, the sound of Dad's hammer as he hung pictures, the way the sunlight streamed through the windows, warm and golden. It wasn't just a house, it was home, or at least it used to be. Now, it was someone else's future, someone else's memory. I stood up, my legs unsteady, and walked to the window. The city stretched out below me, gray and sprawling, the skyline sharp against the dawn. I should have felt relief, but instead, I felt hollow, like I'd left a piece of myself behind. I remembered the bank statement, the unauthorized withdrawals, Michael's name staring back at me like a confession. I remembered Mom's tears, Dad's silence, the way they'd chosen him, over and over, while I'd carried them. And I remembered the party, the way Dad's voice had sliced through me, calling me a fool, telling me I didn't deserve anything. The phone buzzed, and I flinched, my heart racing. It was Mom, her name flashing like a warning light. I let it ring, the sound echoing in the empty apartment, but the voicemail came through, her voice trembling, raw. Edward, she said, and I could hear the exhaustion, the desperation. We're moving out today. The new owners, they're coming tomorrow. We found an apartment, but it's small, and the rent, it's more than we can afford. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. But please, just talk to me. I'm sorry. I see it now. I see you. I deleted it, my fingers trembling, but the words lingered, sharp and accusing. I wanted to believe her, wanted to see the mom I remembered, the one who'd kissed my scraped knees and read me bedtime stories. But then I remembered the party, the way she'd stood there, silent, while Dad mocked me. I remembered the years of silence, the way she'd dismissed my sacrifices, the way she'd praised Michael's potential like it was gold. I called Sarah, my voice tight, and she answered on the first ring. Edward, she said, her voice steady, grounding. How are you holding up? It's done, I said, pacing the apartment, my footsteps loud against the hardwood. The house is sold. They're moving out today. And Mom, she's calling, begging, but Dad, he hasn't said a word. And Michael, he's gone. Aunt Carol says he's not helping, not even answering their calls. Edward, she said, her voice sharp, protective. You did the right thing. They took you for granted, mocked you, after everything you've done. Michael's showing his true colors now, and they're seeing it. You're not punishing them. You're protecting yourself. I know, I said, but the words felt hollow. I wanted to believe her, but the remorse was there, quieter now, but still there, like a shadow I couldn't shake. I remembered the day I paid off the house, sitting in the bank, my fingers trembling as I signed the papers. I'd put it in my name, just in case. A precaution, I told myself. But deep down, I think I knew. I knew they'd never see me the way I wanted them to. The next day, I got a call from Aunt Carol, her voice softer this time, less accusing. Edward, she said, your mother, she's struggling. The apartment's small, and the rent, it's breaking them. Your father, he's furious, but he's not helping. And Michael, he's disappeared. No one's seen him. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. But she's sorry, Edward. She sees it now. She sees you. I hung up, my fingers trembling, but the words lingered, sharp and bittersweet. I wanted to scream, to tell them they didn't know, they didn't see. But the remorse was there, quieter now, overshadowed by something else, clarity, maybe, or resolve. I remembered the bank statement, the unauthorized withdrawals, Michael's name staring back at me like a confession. I remembered the years of excuses, the way Mom had praised his potential, the way Dad had favored him. And I realized they'd known. Maybe not the details, but they'd known he was unreliable, selfish, and they'd chosen him anyway. I looked at the bank statement again, the proceeds from the sale staring back at me, a number on a screen. I could have kept it, hoarded it, let it sit there like a trophy. But instead, I made a call, my voice steady, and opened a new account. I transferred the money, my fingers trembling, and started a business, a small one, nothing grand, but mine. I found a new apartment, too, a place with sunlight and space, a fresh start. I called Sarah, my voice lighter now, and told her everything. I'm starting over, I said, my voice faltering. A business, a new place, it's mine. And I sent them something, anonymously. A month's rent. I knew it wasn't much, but I couldn't let them think I was coming back. Not yet. Edward, she said, her voice steady, grounding. You're not wrong. You're not punishing them. You're protecting yourself. And that rent, it's not weakness. It's compassion. You're allowed to care, even from a distance. I hung up, my fingers still trembling, and looked out the window, the city stretching out below me. The remorse was still there, quieter now, but the resolve was louder, and I knew, as I stood there, gazing at the skyline, that this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The sunlight poured through the windows of my new apartment, warm and golden, like a weight lifted. I stood in the living room, my hands on my hips, surveying the chaos. Boxes stacked against the walls, furniture half assembled, a coffee table littered with takeout containers. It wasn't much, but it was mine. A fresh start, a clean slate, a place where the burden of the past didn't press down on me like a vice. I remembered the day I signed the lease, my fingers steady, my pulse hammering in my ears. The real estate agent had smiled, handing me the keys, and I'd felt it. The shift, the moment everything changed. I remembered the bank statement, the proceeds from the house sale, the numbers staring back at me like a challenge. I'd used it to start a business, a small consulting firm, nothing grand, but mine. I remembered the first client call, the way my voice had trembled, then steadied, as I talked them through the details. It wasn't just a job, it was a future, one I'd built myself. The phone buzzed on the coffee table, and I flinched, my heart racing. It was Mom, her name flashing like a beacon. I let it ring, the sound echoing in the empty apartment, but the voicemail came through, her voice soft, tentative. Edward, she said, and I could hear the hesitation, the hope. I know you're busy, and I know you're still angry, but I'd like to see you. Just coffee, maybe. I miss you. I see you now. I see everything. I sat down, my fingers trembling, and listened to it again. I wanted to believe her, wanted to see the Mom I remembered, the one who'd kissed my scraped knees and read me bedtime stories. But then I remembered the party, the way she'd stood there, silent, while Dad mocked me. I remembered the years of silence, the way she'd dismissed my sacrifices, the way she'd praised Michael's potential like it was gold. And I remembered the bank statement, the unauthorized withdrawals, Michael's name staring back at me like a confession. I called Sarah, my voice tight, and she answered on the first ring. Edward, she said, her tone steady, grounding. How's the new place? It's coming together, I said, pacing the apartment, my footsteps loud against the hardwood. But Mom, she's calling, asking for coffee. She says she sees me now, but I don't know. I don't know if I can trust her. Edward, she said, her voice sharp, protective. You don't owe her anything. Not after everything. But if you want to see her, if you want to try, that's okay too. You're allowed to care, even from a distance. Just set boundaries. Protect yourself. I know, I said, but the words felt hollow. I wanted to believe her, but the fear was there, quieter now, but still there, like a shadow I couldn't shake. I remembered the day I paid off the house, sitting in the bank, my fingers trembling as I signed the papers. I put it in my name, just in case. A precaution, I told myself. But deep down, I think I knew. I knew they'd never see me the way I wanted them to. I met Mom at a cafe downtown, the air thick with the smell of coffee and cinnamon. She sat by the window, her hands wrapped around a mug, her eyes red. She looked older, smaller, like the weight of everything had shrunk her. I sat down, my heart pounding, and she looked up, her eyes meeting mine. "Edward," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I know I've said it before, but I mean it. I let Richard, your father, I let him influence me. I let Michael's flattery blind me. But I see it now. I see you. And I'm trying. I've left him, Edward. I moved out last week. I'm starting over, too." I sat there, silent, my chest constricting. I wanted to believe her, wanted to see the mom I remembered, the one who'd laughed as I tripped on the porch steps, the one who'd caught me just in time. And I saw it, in her eyes, her trembling shoulders, the effort, the accountability. "I'm glad you're trying," I said, my voice steady, but my fingers were trembling. "But it's going to take time. I can't go back to how it was. I need boundaries. I need space." She nodded, her eyes filling with tears, and I felt it. The crack, the fracture, the moment everything mended. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. Michael called later that week, his voice smooth, like honey laced with poison. "Edward," he said, "we need to talk. I know things got messy, but we're family. Let's work this out. I'll split the inheritance 50-50. You knew I was good for it." I hung up, my fingers trembling, and blocked his number. I remembered the bank statement, the unauthorized withdrawals, his name staring back at me like a confession. I remembered the party, the way he'd smirked, the way he'd stood there, smug and victorious. And I realized he'd never change. He'd never see me, never respect me. And I was done trying. The housewarming party was small, intimate, the air thick with laughter and the smell of pizza. Sarah was there, her red dress bright against the white walls, her hazel eyes sparkling. Aunt Carol came, her voice softer now, less accusing. Uncle Joe brought a bottle of wine, his laugh booming. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years showed up, their smiles genuine, their apologies quiet. I stood by the window, my hands on my hips, and looked out at the city, the skyline sharp against the dusk. I felt it, the shift, the moment everything changed. Family wasn't just blood, it was the people who saw me, who respected me, who valued me. Sarah, with her steady voice and protective anger. Aunt Carol, with her softened tone and quiet remorse. Uncle Joe, with his booming laugh and warm embrace. I turned to Sarah, my voice light, and said, "Thanks for being here. For everything." She smiled, her eyes meeting mine, and I saw it, the bond, the trust, the possibility. "Always," she said, and I felt it, the crack, the fracture, the moment everything mended. I looked out the window again, the city stretching out below me, and I knew, as I stood there, gazing at the skyline, that this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Hey listeners, Edward's story just wrapped up, pretty powerful, right? It's all about setting boundaries and finding the people who truly see you, not just what you can give. If Edward's journey hit home, drop a comment below. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family or redefine what family means to you? We'd love to hear your story. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the audio, and subscribe for more stories on resilience and chosen family. Looking for more like this? Remember, your worth isn't what you give, it's who you are. Let's connect and grow together, starting right here in the comments. See you there.